So I was walking the Brahms one day. I had this weird epiphany. I learned that I had this belief um, that I was too stupid to get something, to learn something, to accomplish, just everyday small tasks. And it was weird because I had this anytime, I would go and apply for a job. It was, always had this fear of what if I don't get it? What if I'm not good at it? Whatever. Um, and it wasn't like, yeah, I guess it was kind of crippling in some way. That it did not allow me to just do something, um, just because I needed to, or it was better for me or whatever. It just kind of kept me, you know, uh, I just kind of kept that fear around until obviously I was walking to Brahms, and I had learned that I had that fear and that belief. Um, when I was young, my dad would abuse me, beat me, and called me names like dumb, stupid, idiot, whatever. And he would even beat me for not like getting what he wanted me to get, which was pretty awful. Um, I remember this one like weird thing where he was trying to teach me how to sweep a certain way, and I literally did it exactly like anyway. I literally did it the way I thought that he wanted me to do it, and he beat me with the broom, which was pretty awful. But I grew up in that environment for about 9 years. There was some good moments, but most of my childhood was not the best, whatsoever. Um, it was very difficult for me to get out of it mentally, physically. Man, I remember going to Texas and just really trying to get out of their claws, basically. But they kind of controlled me, even though I was around like 200 miles away. So it was a really bad experience. I came back, um, and then I tried to move to my grandparents' house because staying with them was very heavy. It was very heavy, um, and it was extremely. It was like this anxious environment that I was always in, which was tiring, mentally exhausting to deal with. But I remember trying to go to my grandparents' house, and I called my grandma, and I was like, "Hey, can I live with you?" I told my grandma straight on the phone. I was like, "Do not tell my parents, that I asked you this." Well, she unfortunately opened her mouth and told my parents. My parents got mad for whatever reason, and they started charging me rent at a young age. Uh, so I felt very, already abused, taken advantage of completely, and I felt very taken advantage of, not just in a physical way, but mentally. I remember my parents would make me feel guilty about something. There's this one moment where they were going on a trip, and I wanted to go on a trip as well. I was gonna go camping, and it was this weird, interesting thing where our trips were like 2 weeks apart, and then their trip got canceled and moved up. So they basically was like, you can't go on your trip, even though they had already told me beforehand that I could go. Um, and then told me that I was being selfish about it. So I love how they, at least back then, they don't do that anymore. They're pretty great now. And I get along with my dad pretty well, and I get along with my mom pretty well. Um, but back then was pretty awful. And so moving here, I live in Kansas now, and I moved back in August, and I had lived in Oklahoma for around 26 years. And coming here was an interesting experience because everything that I had been dealing with was all linked to my childhood. The constant emotional problems, and I still have those. The feeling fear, and this one I'm still dealing with. The feeling like you're not good enough, or like like everything's your fault all the time. I still deal with that one constantly, and it's a big problem. But when you are self-aware about what you believe and why you believe that about yourself, it's a lot easier for you to get out of it. Like, I just got a new job at Walmart, and before there was just this fear, like, of not being able to get something, and I don't really feel that anymore. I know I'm going to be able to do the job. I know I'm very capable, and it's not like this big weight, or like, yeah, I guess weight. There's not this weight anymore. Everything feels pretty right where it's supposed to be, and I think that's basically where, I don't know, my journey obviously hasn't ended, but I know that if I hadn't had that epiphany or whatever, then I probably wouldn't have gotten a job at Brahms or Walmart. Probably still be working at Brahms because it feels comfortable. And I don't like being, I don't like feeling stagnant. I enjoy getting out there and just being able to do things without feeling fear. And so this has been an interesting journey, definitely. And I've enjoyed most of it. Most of it's been a little bit rocky, but being able to like go from Oklahoma to Kansas, just like that, on a whim, is pretty awesome. And the experiences I've had here have been pretty great. And I'm very grateful that I had learned that about myself. I didn't really know it at the time, but I guess that had been keeping me from doing a lot of the things that I should have done and I could have done. Whether it was a job or just making just better decisions that challenged me to do things that, I don't know, that I probably would have liked doing, or been able to be okay to fail at, if that makes sense. So I just say all that just so that if anybody feels that way, or if anybody's had abuse or anything like that, dealing with it, if you're still in it now, that's extremely painful. I do remember getting upset with my dad and just definitely walking away one day while I was working with him. I was like, I'm really sick and tired of the way you're treating me. And it kind of ended after that. It's been getting way better. Like my dad called lately, and he literally like offered me some cash in case I was like having a hard time. And that, in my opinion, has been like, wow. Like my parents have offered, like, I feel more support now than I had then. Um, so just being able to know that they're there is obviously important. But if you're still stuck in it now, like, um, I'm not sure what advice to offer you. Um, I know for me it stopped when it stopped, and that was about when I was 14. Um, it's going to be a really heavy subject. I also remember, this is going to be weird to say this. I also remember DHS being called when I was a kid. That was an interesting fork in the road that I often wonder how my life would have been if I had spoken up and said something. The guy from DHS came into the house. I was still being abused at the time. And there was my grandparents there, or my grandpa, I guess, and my teacher. And you have no idea how frustrated and how aggravated I was at both of them, my grandpa and my teacher, because at one point, there's got to be this kind of intuition thing for either of them. My grandpa, on numerous occasions, saw the way my dad treated me, and my uncle even saw the way my dad treated me. So it was really disappointing when I was the one getting beaten, and I have 7 brothers and sisters, by the way, who did not. My dad that I'm talking about is my stepdad. So it was very disappointing, very much so, knowing that they were there supporting my parents, and I'm still the one getting abused. And I remember being there and just getting to the point to where I really hope he takes the kids and talks to the kids by themselves. And it never got to that point, and I felt like it was this open door that I did not stand up and take, at least at the time, to just shout and say, my dad's beating me, or whatever. Because that was not somewhere I obviously felt safe in whatsoever. Hardly ever. So I don't, the only time I can think of having a good time in my childhood was when I was with my friends, and that was it. And I don't use my parents, unfortunately, as emotional supports. My dad is great to talk to, and my mom is great to talk to, but I'm not going to open up about them. I'm not going to open up to them about my life, on like a deep level. Like, I enjoy talking to my mom about like Christian stuff and whatever, sometimes. And then I'm just trying to get to know my stepdad a little bit better. Yes, the one who beat me. And that's been nice. He apologized. He felt regret about it. We both cried together for one moment. That's a little bit hard for me to do with him still. But I have a difficult time, even though I am an emotional person. And I really have this thing for being vulnerable in front of people. I really love being vulnerable. And so I hate it when I'm afraid to cry in front of someone. And I feel more safe when I'm able to just break down. Because it's a beautiful thing. It really is. So, that being said, if you're being abused now, I would definitely talk to someone about it. Open up to someone that you trust. It's a weird thing because if you're afraid of DHS being called, then, you know, if you go to a teacher or something like that, then that's obviously probably going to happen. If you're not, then that's probably what I would do. DHS, CPS, whatever. I forget I'm in Kansas and I don't even know if there's a DHS here. But anyway, if you are afraid of them being called, then I would probably talk to someone who knows the parents and who doesn't necessarily, who might see a little bit of what you're going through, and who can talk to you about it and see what your decisions are or whatever. So for me, unfortunately, that was my, you know, I don't actually think I've even talked about my abuse to a guardian. I think it was more my friends, honestly, which is pretty interesting. But, and if you're wondering why DHS was called, it was some neighbors that called. And so, yeah, and you know, the funny thing was the guy came in, he was like, I don't find anything wrong, you know, here, whatever. Which is so fascinating. It really is, especially at the time. Golly, because I could think of a lot of problems. I think I was around 13 or 14. And like I said, the abuse stopped either it was a few months after that, or it was around, yeah, a few months after that, or it was, I can't remember. But all I know is it stopped when I was 14, so I guess the details don't matter, but the story does. So, you know what I mean. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I just wanted to let you guys know to be very mindful of your thoughts and actions. Be very mindful of your beliefs. And try and figure out what those beliefs lead you to do. And how to overcome the negative beliefs, the negative lies about yourself. A good way to do that, this is really weird, but a good way to do that, in my opinion, is to go and watch Avatar: The Last Airbender. It's the last episode where Aang meets Guru Pratik. There's a nice edit down. There's a nice edited down version where it's just Aang and Guru Pratik. And I'll put the link for that in the description, so that you guys can do that, just to understand the fears, griefs, guilt, shame, the lies, illusions, and earthly attachments. So good stuff on there. I'll see you guys in the next video.